Welcome to Brains on Games. I'm Dr. Brian McDonald, and there's a fly flying around in my basement, so you might see it on the video. It's like an episode of Breaking Bad down here. Maybe I'll win an award or something. But this episode, I'm talking about, I'm going to tell you about a game that I really like, a word game. Now, I do not have a lot of word games in my collection. The only other word game I think I've talked about on this show has been Codenames, and that was early on. But this is a great little game. It's a game called Trapwords. So ages 8 and up, half an hour to play, and at least 4 players, but it can go to 8 or even more players than that because you're playing in teams, and you've got 2 teams. They need to have at least 2 kids on, or 2 people on each team. It doesn't have to be kids. This is a game that I like. Now, it's a game, a word game, like I said. It's a word game that's like that old game show, $20,000 Pyramid, or a more recent game, Taboo, where you're trying to get your teammates to guess a secret word. With Taboo, and this game is a little similar to Taboo in that way, with Taboo, you've got certain words that you're not allowed to say. Like the easy clues have been eliminated, and you have to be careful when you're giving clues that you don't say one of those words. Trapwords is a little bit like that. Here's the board. You can see that there are rooms. There are little tiles that are laid out in a line. You've got the players on one end. There's a little monster here on the other end, and I'll explain what that's all about. There's a couple of little cards here. Those are curses, and we'll talk about that too. But like I said, you're trying to get your teammates to guess a word. So you've got a stack of word cards here. There's words on both sides. You're going to put it into one of these little books that has a window in it. So you kind of flip it over ahead of time because the other team is going to see one side and you don't want them to be able to guess. And you put it in the little book, and then there's one little word that comes through this window. Now, the player who's giving the clues does not get to see the word first. The first players to see that word are the opponents. They're going to take a look at that word, and they're going to come up with words, the taboo words, the trap words. They're going to come up with the words that you're not allowed to say. So those words are not predetermined. That's what I think is so great about this game. You've got this activity where you're not just using your vocabulary and building up your vocabulary, you're making connections between these different words. That's how you're giving the clues. You're trying to come up with ways that you can get your teammates to quickly guess, but you have to be careful. You don't step on one of those landmines. You don't step into a trap and say one of those wrong words, because that will end your turn. Now, making those connections between words is such an important exercise. You've got the vocabulary building, or the vocabulary portion of the game, but the connections, that's about abstract verbal reasoning. Verbal reasoning is what you're doing. And it's so great that a game like this can give kids a chance to practice that skill, because making abstract connections between words is one of the ways that psychologists measure verbal IQ. So it's giving kids a chance to do that kind of an activity where, that's very important as a measure of their learning skills, but they're doing it in a fun way. So you're coming up with these trap words too. You've got vocabulary, you've got abstract verbal reasoning, but the opponents are working together to come up with 3 words. That's what that number is on the room. They're going to come up with 3 words that you're not allowed to say that will end your turn. They're going to be looking at you and thinking about, from what they know of you, they're not just thinking about the words, they're going to think about you and try and come up with words they think you're likely to want to say. So there's a social judgment component too. So your opponents are thinking of those traps because they want to come up with words that you'll probably say as clues, but you don't get to see what the trap words are. So you have to guess what your opponents have written down that you're not allowed to say. It makes it so complicated and fun and funny when you have to do it that way. Another thing that I do like about the way they've organized this is that if you're not able to get that clue correct, if you hit a trap word, if your team runs out of guesses, you only get 5 chances to guess this word, you're also on a timer. This keeps the game moving. This keeps the game to that 30-minute time limit. You've got 3 minutes to guess what that word might be. So I think it's great if kids learn to work with timers. Again, learning to do it in a game where it's fun, where they're playing, is a good way to kind of start to think about time management and develop that internal clock, I think. So you've got 5 guesses. You've got a 3-minute time limit. If you guess right, and you don't hit one of those 3 trap words, you move ahead. But next time, you're going to have to deal with 4 trap words instead of 3. But if you don't get it, it doesn't increase the difficulty. So you're kind of staying at the same level if you're not able to move forward, which is okay. There's going to be either 8 rounds in the game, or this monster is slowly going to move forward, and somebody's going to win their word while they're in the same room as the monster, and that's going to end the game. These little curse cards just add an extra wrinkle. They make it a bit more complicated and maybe a bit more fun. The first team who starts their turn in a room with this curse, they have to follow the extra rule on the card. So this one says that there's a flood and you have to give all of your clues in a single breath. So the clue giver has to take a deep breath and give all of their clues without inhaling, which I think is quite amusing. The other one here is... it says compulsion, which the compulsion is that you have to say, when you're guessing, you have to say, I'll eat my hat if it's not. So it just adds an extra rule and it makes it a little bit more silly and maybe a little bit more fun. If you are guessing a room and, if you're guessing a word and you're in the same room as the monster also adds some extra rules. So there's several different monsters in the game. This one's the troll, and the troll says that the clue giver can only give 10 clues. So your team gets 5 guesses, but only 10 clues are allowed. So that makes it more complicated too. That is Trapwords in a nutshell. A quick game for almost any number of players. As long as you've got 4, you're good to go. But it works on those verbal reasoning skills and vocabulary. It's got the social judgment, plus you're working with timers. Now, if you have any questions or suggestions and you'd like to reach me, you can find me by email at brian@brainsongames.ca. Brainsongames.ca is the website. That's where the previous episodes are posted, and future episodes will go there too. Speaking of previous episodes, a couple of episodes ago, I talked about a game called Lizard Wizard. Now, that's a game that hasn't been released yet, but just a reminder, it's coming up on Kickstarter on July 28th. So I just wanted to remind you about the date of the release of that game. So Lizard Wizard, July 28th. Brains on Games, like I said, that's the website. Brains on Games is the Twitter handle and the Instagram feed and the Facebook page, so you can find us all over the place. If you like this video and you'd like to see more, you can head on over to YouTube and press that subscribe button and you'll get notified of new episodes. Thanks for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you next time.